Found this on Timothy Charles Homeseth. Reports infiltrated the finders and Epstein JSOC, one man away from President Trump. Got away with murder. Nope. This is from August 23, 2023. Fulton County. I just wanted to show a few photos here of Yellowstone National Park and all the hot springs and geysers and molten bubbling cauldrons of heat that comes up through the ground in Yellowstone National Park. I know that, for years now, we've been hearing that the whole park could explode. And they watch it continually because of the volcanoes activity underneath. I've been in the park at least 4 times, and I've seen this on a grand scale. It's really beautiful. But some of it you can smell the sulfur. It's so strong and like thick mud. So I'm just wondering how you would be able to build a huge military base underneath that ground. That's just my question. And I think it's a pretty good question. So that's just something to think about when you're talking about entire cities and military bases and tunnels. I would think that would be one of the worst places in the continent, other than maybe Hawaii, to build underground cities and military bases. Those things are pretty big. So that's just my question. What do you think? As far as the photos that Jessie used in her affidavit as examples, any one of them could have been taken right off this page right here. We need to ask questions. We need to use our common sense and not just believe everything that is told. I'm not saying that bad things have never happened in Yellowstone Park, but I doubt it's happened underground. So, besides that, the time that Jessie talks about being there, she would have been between the ages of 4 and 10 years old. But yet she remembers all these big, sophisticated names and everything. I'm not buying that, not for 1 second. She's done some study. She's done some homework. She's got some big names. And she's a very, very good storyteller, to the point of it being fairy tales. Okay, I think that's enough. And to me, what she calls on that Yellowstone National Park there, what she calls a sigil, which is a witch's sigil, is an arrowhead, an Indian arrowhead. It's Yellowstone National Park. Indians used to live there. It's got mountains and trees on it. Yellowstone has mountains and trees. Unbelievable. I'm sorry, I kept going here. I've sat out in front of those things, and they're hot. They're hot springs. How are you going to build a city under there? Or a military base? Ridiculous. See, there's the pine trees. I tell you, I've never seen such an imagination next to Timothy Holmes's. I thought I would take a view of the, or look into the magma underneath Yellowstone National Park. New views of how magma is stored beneath Yellowstone, provided by hundreds of seismic sensors. This is by the Yellowstone Volcanic Observatory, July 31st, 2023. Data from a major deployment of seismometers in 2020 is revealing new insights into the characteristics of the magma chamber beneath Yellowstone caldera, including how melt is distributed in the reservoir. Yellowstone Caldera Chronicles is a weekly column written by scientists and collaborators of the Yellowstone Volcanic Observatory. This week's contribution is from Sin Mai Wu, seismologist with Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, and Jamie Farrell and Fan Chen Lin, seismologist with the Department of Geology and Geophysics at the University of Utah. Over the past few years, several new insights into the character of Yellowstone's magma reservoir have been published. These results are largely based on seismic data, particularly on the variable speed of seismic waves in the subsurface. I don't know how good you can see this, but there's all these little dots all over the park represent the seismic of the magma there. I'll just let you look at that for a minute. I can't see it well enough to comment on it here, so. Map of Yellowstone region showing the backbone, triangles, and dense 2020 yellow squares, seismic networks. So as you can see, the whole park is covered with those. Seismic waves record information about the subsurface structure and composition as they pass through the earth. From the seismic source to the receiver, the travel time can be used to determine how fast the wave propagates. Hot or partially melted rock slows down the wave propagation in comparison to solid rock. So seismic waves that move more slowly than expected might indicate the presence of hot or molten material. A single source to receiver travel time measurement, however, only provides the average information along the wave path. It is therefore difficult to accurately characterize underground areas that can be extremely variable and complex, for example, beneath a volcano. More data are needed, just like a digital camera, where more megapixels give you a better image. More seismic data provide better resolution of what the subsurface looks like. The current seismic network in Yellowstone is maintained by the University of Utah seismograph stations and consists of about 40 stations. The network not only detects earthquakes but also offers important opportunities to probe the structure of the subsurface. Scientists have used seismic wave speeds from earthquakes occurring around Yellowstone and even hundreds of miles away to depict the current magmatic system beneath Yellowstone caldera, which consists of two reservoirs stacked atop one another, one containing viscous rhyolite magma at depths of 5 to 19 kilometers, about 3 to 12 miles, and a second holding more fluid basaltic magma at 20 to 50 kilometers, about 12 to 30 miles beneath the surface. Okay, you hear that? So tell me how you're going to build a military base under Yellowstone. We're a city. I think Jessie should have thought about that before she made up this wild tale about Yellowstone. Based on seismic wave speeds, the melt fraction of the total reservoir system is less than 10% overall, assuming the liquid phase of the material, or melt, is broadly distributed within the solid rock matrix. The upper reservoir contains more melt, perhaps up to 20% based on the most recent estimates, than the lower reservoir, but both are mostly solid. This image, however, provides no information regarding the texture of the reservoir or how melt might be stored. For example, evenly distributed all in one place or in small pods. The University of Utah, in collaboration with the University of New Mexico and Yellowstone National Park, attempted to address this knowledge gap with the temporary deployment of hundreds of seismic sensors across the region. The field campaign was conducted from August to September 2020, when around 650 autonomous seismic sensors, or nodes, were set up along roads and trails. These are the same type of sensors that have been used to study the dynamics of Old Faithful and steamboat geysers. The 2020 seismic array was designed to passively record seismic waves generated by the ocean, known as microseisms. Although the energy from the microseisms or microseisms is small, it is detectable by modern seismometers, even very far from the coast, and has characteristics that make it ideal for studying the crustal structure beneath Yellowstone. There's a sparse network and a dense network. Comparison between the velocity structures outlining the Yellowstone's upper crustal magma reservoir at 5 kilometers or 3 miles depth, based on sparse left and dense right. Seismic networks. The open squares denote the locations of seismic sensors. Warmer colors indicate lower velocity, representing higher melt fraction within the medium. The denser seismic array clearly has much better resolution of the seismic velocity structure. A recent study published in the journal Earth and Planetary Science Letters demonstrates that the image derived from the dense array data better delineates the extent of the magma reservoir and better captures its physical properties compared with using data from the backbone seismic network only. Results indicate that seismic velocity is exceptionally slow near the top of the magma reservoir at 5 kilometers or 3 miles depth. The new image based on the dense array is also astoundingly consistent with the recent finding that relied on supercomputing power and analyzed previously collected seismic data. With 3-component vertical and horizontal recording, the recent study using dense array data provides even more insights into the crustal structure and its texture. Like waves moving along a guitar string that can have either vertical or in and out movements, seismic waves can have different polarizations, particle movement directions, when propagating through the earth. Data from the dense 2020 deployment found that the horizontally polarized waves propagated about 20% faster than the vertically polarized waves when going through the upper part of the magma reservoir. This indicates the presence of horizontally elongated areas of localized magma storage, called seals, and means that magma is stored in a sheet-like manner instead of evenly distributed within the rock matrix. After accounting for the textural fabrics, the melt fraction can be more accurately estimated to be up to 28% in this region of the magma chamber. Despite the fact that this number is higher than previous estimates, it is still much lower than the melt fraction required to be eruptible found from the past Yellowstone eruptions. More importantly, such improvement of understanding Yellowstone's system has guided us in a promising direction to studying other volcanic systems on Earth. For instance, applying the same method at other volcanoes could provide important insights into how magma is stored in hazardous and frequently active systems, information that can improve eruption forecasts. I can't see that very good on my phone, but it should be pretty good on this big screen. Schematic model of Yellowstone's subsurface magmatic seal complex based on seismic data collected in 2020. The presence of magmatic seals with higher amounts of melt, about 28%, compared to their surrounding, is revealed by data collected from a dense deployment of about 653 component capable of measuring vertical and horizontal motion seismometers in Yellowstone National Park during August-September 2020. Despite the value of the recent findings, there are many important questions regarding the Yellowstone magmatic system remain. Are there clear boundaries between the magma reservoir and the surrounding material? What are the exact compositions, magmatic fluid, gas, and melt within the reservoir? How does the deep magmatic system interact with the shallow hydrothermal system? Ongoing research aims to answer these questions using seismic waves generated by a Viburnus truck during the 2020 experiment. There's more to the story, so stay tuned. Here's some contacts from the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. There's the address, 1300 Southeast Cardinal Court in Vancouver, Washington. There's the email address and the phone number. There's the Yellowstone Volcanic Observatory, the email address. On every day you gaze upon the sunset with such love and intensity. Why, it's almost as if you could only crack the code and you'd finally understand what this all means. So this is from the Science for a Changing World, U.S. Geological Survey, U.S. Department of the Interior, 1-888-392-8545. I found another article here from December 2, 2022, from the Smithsonian Magazine. A surprising amount of magma is under Yellowstone's supervolcano. New research suggests more melted rock lies beneath the Yellowstone caldera, but it's still not likely to erupt anytime soon. Sarah Kuda. Well, I made this whole video, so the second part of it, where I read the actual affidavit about Jessie Czebotar and Casper, Wyoming, and Yellowstone National Park, I had wondered in there what her birthday was, how old she was, and after I got finished with it, then I did find out, I did get that information. I think it's April 22nd, which is tomorrow, is her birthday. And she was born in 1977, which would make her 77, 87, 40 some years old. She's in her early to mid 40s. So she was in 1981 through 1987, which she mentions as the time frame she was associated with Yellowstone and Casper, Wyoming. She would have been between the ages of 4 years old and 10 years old. So she was a pretty young child. And the reason I wanted to know that was because she uses all these names and sophisticated language and on and on and on. That I don't think it would be possible for her to remember all that stuff. She's obviously done a lot of research into this. She's read a lot. She's been around a lot. She's learned how to be a tall tale teller. And there are some people that are just really good at that. She obviously enjoys it very, very much. She can talk about all this really gross, horrible stuff without batting an eyelash. She doesn't change her demeanor much in her face, which shows a type of sociopathic personality. Maybe she went through some horrible things as a child. I'm not saying that never happened. I'm just saying that much of the stuff that she says can be scientifically proven to be false. And one of them is, this is the caldera, the giant caldera. It's literally a volcano in Yellowstone, super volcano, where she makes the claim, and that's what I'm debunking right here, that there is a military base or military bases and cities underneath Yellowstone National Park. And she does say that it is underneath Yellowstone National Park, which has boundaries. There's tunnel systems that go all the way to Greek islands from Yellowstone. So when you're hearing stuff like this, you need to ask questions like that. That's how you use common sense and how you figure out whether somebody's telling a tall tale or an outright lie, made up in their head in a fantasy world that obviously she lives in. So when you see something like that, then you can't really believe anything else she says, period, whether it's true or not. Because if somebody will lie about something like that, and I do say she's very intelligent, but she should have thought about this before she made this tall tale. I have discussed this with several people who are very knowledgeable about Yellowstone. There's no way. I mean, there's magma that goes 30 miles deep. The ground is unstable. It's not, from the information I gleaned here, it's not likely that it's going to explode anytime soon. And they give you the reasons why. But if you're interested in this at all and in knowing the truth, I know it might be kind of boring, but we're laying out scientific facts here. So it just depends on how much you want to know or whether you want to believe a lie. So I think that's all I need to say in here. I just wanted to add that in there. So just don't believe anything you hear. I mean, nothing. Don't believe me until you research it. God bless you. But can you imagine building a military complex under that? Or a city? This is the Grand Prismatic Spring inside Yellowstone National Park. This is one of the magma reservoirs underneath the Yellowstone caldera, a huge crater and super volcano. Holds more liquid molten rock than scientists previously estimated, suggests new research published Thursday in Journal Science. The amount of melted rock beneath the volcano helps researchers determine how close it might be to erupting. But though there may be more liquid magma underneath Yellowstone than scientists had assumed, the behemoth is still unlikely to erupt anytime in the near future. Magma consists of rocks and crystals at varying stages of solidity. The more melted or liquid the magma is, the more likely a volcano is to erupt. 2 large reservoirs full of magma exist beneath the Yellowstone caldera, one that's about 3 to 10 miles beneath the surface, and another that's 12 to 30 miles below the ground. Based on previous research, scientists thought the shallower reservoir was mostly solid, with just 5 to 15% melted rock. Now, however, after using powerful supercomputers to reanalyze existing seismic data from the past 20 years, they believe that proportion is actually 16 to 20%. That's still well below the threshold of liquid magma, about 35 to 50%, that scientists believe will trigger an eruption. While the new findings don't change the volcano's risk level, they do represent a big improvement in our ability to understand what's beneath Yellowstone, says Carrie Cooper, an earth and planetary scientist at the University of California, Davis, who was not involved in the study, to New Scientist James Deenan. Wow. I wonder where they would place a military base under there, or a city.
Heaviness, oh, the heaviness, the body settles in. Somewhere you can hear a mother sing.
The Earth hasn't created more liquid magma. Rather, scientists say they now have a more accurate understanding of what was already there. It's a bit like getting a new lens on an old camera, says Michael Poland, a research geophysicist and the scientist in charge at the U.S. Geological Survey's Yellowstone Volcanic Observatory, who was not involved in the study. To the New York Times, Robin George Andrews, it's the same camera, but you've got finer resolution now. You can see with more clarity. The Yellowstone supervolcano, located in northwestern Wyoming in Yellowstone National Park, is one of the largest volcanoes in the world. It's erupted multiple times over the past 2.1 million years, including 3 massive eruptions that smothered the surrounding landscape in ash. The Yellowstone caldera, which spans 30 by 45 miles wide, formed during one of those eruptions roughly 631,000 years ago. Seismic waves produced by earthquakes must move through layers of material inside the earth before reaching seismometers on the surface. The waves slow down when they reach molten rock, so researchers can use the time it takes them to reach the seismometers to glean insights into how much magma is below ground. Past analyses have assumed that seismic waves emanate linearly from the quake towards the seismometer, but the reality of their journey is much more nuanced than that. This time around, supercomputers modeled the seismic waves in 3 dimensions, which gave scientists a more complete picture of the crystal mush beneath Yellowstone. As study co-author Ross Maguire, a seismologist at the University of Illinois' Urbana campaign, tells New Scientist. By Sarah Kuta. Sarah Kuta is a writer and editor based in Longmont, Colorado. She covers history, science, travel, food and beverage, sustainability, economics. The following affidavits, Jessie Marie Czebotar, were authored by Jessie Marie Czebotar. The affidavits were escrowed by former Truth and Taxation Judge Randy Lynn Erickson. Now, I don't know if Randy is a real Truth and Taxation Judge. I really don't know. I don't know what credentials she really has. I know that the credentials that Timothy Homseth claim are pretty much fictitious. And, partially true, mostly not true. So, is she a sovereign citizen? Truth and taxation judge? Like I said, I really don't know. So I'm not making any accusations here. I just know that they're into that sovereign citizen thing where they don't have to go by the rules the rest of us go by. And although that sounds really good, to, not have any taxes to pay or anything else, I'd like to make a comment here. And this is speaking to Christians who follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. And if you don't and you have other ideas, then that's fine. I don't have a problem with what you believe. It would be nice, in a way to not have to pay taxes and all that stuff. I agree. However, we need to look back and see what did Jesus do? What did he say about paying taxes and obeying the laws of the land? When they asked him if they should pay taxes, he asked for a coin. And he said, whose inscription is on that coin? And they said, Caesar's. He said, okay, well, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and render unto God that which is God's. So we are to obey the laws of the land and live peaceably with all men. What this ecumenical movement out here, like with Reawaken America tour, they feel like that they have to take over the government. And they have to make their rules everybody's rules, and if you don't obey them, then you're just going to have to die. You're going to have to be gotten rid of. And they have no qualms about saying that. But Jesus taught us to live peaceably with all men. Not one time did he ever try to take over the government. But he said, obey those who have the rule over you. If as long as they're not telling you you can't believe in Jesus and practice your belief, then that's when they got killed, when they stood up for Christ. So that's just a little insight there that kind of knocks out this whole sovereign citizen thing for Christians. That don't mean we shouldn't fight for our Constitution. We shouldn't, ask for our rights, because that's part of our government. And our government's definitely not perfect by any means. It's getting more corrupt by the day, but this is the devil's world right now. And it's going to be the devil's world until Jesus comes back. All these New Agers and these Reawaken America, all these Aquarius awakened people out here, they want to tear everything down. They're pushing for civil war. They want to destroy this world as we know it so they can rebuild it in their image. Don't be fooled by all this garbage out here. Okay, anyway, Randy Lynn Erickson, Minnesota, under her state licensing through the Department of Commerce. Okay, it says she has a state license. Maybe she does. She seems like a pretty smart person. It's just like Timothy and, in my opinion, Jessie Czebotar are both narcissistic sociopaths. That's not saying that nothing they say is true or not true, because there's always truth mixed in with all the lies. That's the hook they get you with. That's the bait, is the truth. But what they're doing is basically just taking a lot of information that's out there and remaking it in their own image, or attributing it to themselves, much like 107. They're have a cunning intelligence, which means they're very intelligent, but it's a cunning, deceptive intelligence. The affidavits below do not constitute all of Czebotar's affidavits. The following affidavits are filed with the United States District Court and/or United States Army Criminal Criminal Investigation Division, Fort Campbell, and or Office of the Texas Governor, President Donald J. Trump, and his attorneys and or attorney Stephen Biss. Now, just because they say these are filed doesn't mean they're filed. Now, I can't prove one way or another whether they're filed or not. I just know that these people lie profusely. So, you can't. Stephen Biss was one that protected all these grifters. I think he passed away recently. But Stephen Biss is the attorney for Randy Lynn Erickson. He prepared a RICO state complaint for his client, Erickson. Biss's complaint begins with Czebotar's detailed account by Czebotar of the time she watched Hillary Clinton and her henchmen. Oh, I don't think I can read this out loud, so I'm just going to let you read it here. Okay, Erickson asked Biss to tell her the name of the Minnesota attorney, and he refused. Thus, the RICO is not filed. So Biss, from what I've heard, I don't really know anything personally about him. He was a pretty crooked lawyer. But he received $30,000 from Erickson. The reason it's probably not filed is because courts wouldn't accept it. But I don't know that, so that's just my intuition, kind of. Biss is also the attorney of former U.S. Congressman Devin Nunes, now CEO of Truth Social, retired U.S. Army General Michael Flynn and family, former CIA agent Robert David Steele, and Timothy Charles Homseth. So that tells you a whole lot right there. Now, this affidavit that Jessie's doing here is from Casper, Wyoming, final draft. Now, I'm trying to figure out Jessie. I've been watching a lot of videos and just listening to her and what she has to say. And I'm going to tell you, she's really good. I mean, she is super intelligent, but in that cunning way that I was speaking of. I don't know if anything really happened to her. So I'm not saying one way or another. I don't know. I just know that I remember Kathy O'Brien's story and how Dick Cheney took Kathy O'Brien to Wyoming where he lived. And, he was her handler. He was a cruel, despicable sadist that hurt her badly as a young girl. And, even into the White House when he was vice president. So I do know that there are frauds out there who read all this stuff and then they attribute it to themselves. It's hard to understand that dynamic, but that's what they do. And they can spin tales like you wouldn't believe, just like 107. I mean, a tail spinner, tall tales. And there's a little video in here about Jessie's tall tales too. But it's, like I said, I'm trying to figure this out in my head from watching hours. She has a lot of head knowledge about the satanic world and the Luciferian world, the brotherhood and all that stuff. She has all the words, and she can spin her tales around that. So I've been to Yellowstone National Park several times. There's a picture in her affidavit that she uses of an inn that has the buffaloes. And my husband and I, we went there on our honeymoon, and I don't believe what she's saying about this. I mean, it looks like all the pictures she used for her examples in her affidavit, from postcards. So I don't know. Like I said, I can't tell you what's true and what's not true. I mean, there's some of it I can tell you that's not true. Anybody that's got any sense or common sense in their head would know that it's a fairy tale. So that's what you got to look at when you're listening to her, is when she gets to the fairy tales, because that makes everything else that she's saying unbelievable as well. So I decided to go ahead and read the entirety of that affidavit. Took me a while, and there are some little puppy snores. It was kind of late at night. He was on my lap, and he was really sawing logs. So all those little snorts and snores are coming from a 5-pound chihuahua named Mikimoto Francisco. He's wagging his tail. He says, I know my name. And a lot of this is my opinion based on my observance of a lot of so-called MK Ultra survivors, from Kathy O'Brien's own testimony, which I believe 100% to be true as far as she could remember it, because there was too much of it that was proven to have happened and to be true. Just my general watching hours of listening to Jessie talk. So my opinions in here are that, my opinions. I'd like to know what other people think about the possibility of building underground military bases underneath Yellowstone National Park. Huge underground cities under Yellowstone National Park. So if you have any input, information about that, save me from having to go into a long, drawn-out research project. I'm having company tonight, so God bless you. Jessie Marie Czebotar, Casper, Wyoming, affidavit, final draft. There are those who wish they could die, but death eludes them. There are places underground that literally are living hell. October 17, 2023. Jessie Marie Czebotar interviewed by the FBI. I can't read that small print, but I highly doubt that Jessie was interviewed by the FBI. I would have to see solid, credible, undeniable proof before I would believe that. So I don't believe it. Okay, this is why I don't believe it. It's by the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, which doesn't exist. Never has existed. If anybody can prove that it exists, I'll change my mind. But I know it doesn't exist, except in Timothy Holmes's mind. It used to be believed by Phil McConnell before he went to jail and got his senses knocked back into his head. We have received a final draft copy of Jessie Marie Czebotar's affidavit concerning Casper, Wyoming, and that areas connected to international crimes against humanity by foreign military operating on American soil. Began Jessie Marie Czebotar, sworn under the pains and penalty of perjury, claim the following facts to be truth: that I am of age, of sound mind, and competent to put these facts upon the record. I would like to submit upon the record the following to be added to previous testimony in affidavit form. I am sharing further because it is my belief that these are matters of national security, as the Luciferian Brotherhood and their sovereign military order of Knights Templars continues to commit crimes of rape, torture, satanic ritual, and murder, trafficking, adrenochrome, and hormone harvesting, organ harvesting, and cannibalism against children and humanity. More concerning is the Brotherhood and sovereign military's control over decommissioned Poseidon missiles filled with biochemical warfare. The memories I'd like to share deal with crimes against children and humanity that I experienced and witnessed being committed by Luciferian Brotherhood and Sovereign Military Order of Knights Templars in the Yellowstone National Park area and Casper, Wyoming regional area. Part 1, Areas and Modes of Operation through National Parks and Forests. Now I'm going to say that I don't know that I will be able to read all of this out loud. Some of it is extremely disturbing, and I don't even want it coming out of my lips. I will try to read what I can. In this affidavit, I'd like to bring forward additional areas and modes of operation used by the Luciferian Brotherhood and Sovereign Military Order of Knights Templars that I witnessed from 1981 to 1987. Now, I think she was a fairly young girl when this supposedly happened. And I'm not saying none of this happened to her or that she didn't see some of this. But I also know how the MK Ultra mind control works. And I know that there's also a lot of false memories that are implanted. That's been proven over and over in psychiatry. And, children's minds are very, very suggestible. They might think they're seeing, a sacrifice of a child. It could be a rubber doll, that they've put some kind of red coloring all over or something. And they also use hallucinatory drugs. And, to create hallucinations. That's why it's called sorcery. That's why it's called pharmakia, because it was used in rituals. And I know Kathy O'Brien said that they used every kind of drugs that you could think of. They even give them copious amounts of aspartame because it's extremely addictive. The only thing they wouldn't give them was cannabis because they couldn't use the mind control on them when they were doing that. So I don't know how that all works, but I do know that the mind is very suggestible, especially in children. And I'm not saying that you can't believe a child. I'm just saying that looking at the circumstances of these rituals and what they do, the drugs that are used, and the hallucinations that they're conjuring, for lack of a better word, they don't really know what they saw was real or not real. I'll just put it that way. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because it does happen. There are human sacrifices. I don't even like talking about this subject. I remember when it was first introduced to me, I told the Lord, I said, I don't want to know this stuff if there's not something I could do about it. It's going to be really hard for me to read parts of this because, number one, I don't believe it. And to this extent, I know it happens. And it could be worse than I even think it could be, but I don't even want to think about it. It's too horrible. But if there weren't so many lies involved that I know are outright lies, I might take it more seriously. But anybody that teams up with Timothy Charles Holmseth, I don't take seriously. On the other hand, there's some things that Timothy has that's true. But he has a tendency to make ludicrous claims like he has one man in between him and President Trump, that he's an award-winning reporter. He does a decent job with what he does. I don't know. Maybe I have a little soft spot for Timothy. I don't know. I feel bad for whatever happened to him. I'll say that. Okay. Those involved in the Brotherhood are part of a system. This system is run and managed regionally by the system's 5 departments, which include Masons, Mormons, Jesuit Catholics, Satanists, and Kabbalah. The quadrant heads, who are part of the Satanic Council, Grand High Priests and Grand High Priestesses, and their regional heads, High Priests and Priestesses, are Nazis and serve a foreign government and military. That foreign government and military being the Luciferian Brotherhood. At the top of the Luciferian Brotherhood system, you have two governing bodies that oversee the quadrants. The old system was known as the Babylon system and was financially backed by the Vatican. It was symbolized by the color blue and known as Rome. The old system is currently being transferred to the new system, which is called the Leviathan system, and financially backed by the Sanhedrin in Israel. The system is also called Judah and recognized by the color red. That's like the Democrats and the blue Democrats and the red Republicans. Maybe that's true. This change of power can be recognized regionally. Previously, each regional territory was recognized by circular city sigils that were placed at the entrances of cities and on governmental buildings. These sigils established the demonic authorities over the area and the brotherhood orders that would be governing in those areas. But I thought Jessie said that the mothers of darkness were over the whole thing, the whole system. So I guess these are underlings to the mothers of darkness. They simply have the new signs are rectangular. They simply have the city name and do not show which brotherhood orders have authority in the area. In Yellowstone, we see such a sigil as you enter the park. The sigil is in the form of a spearhead pointed downward. In the middle, we see imagery of a white buffalo, a tree, and mountains. Well, maybe that's just because it's Yellowstone National Park and it has buffaloes and pine trees and mountains and Indian spearheads. Maybe that's why that sign's there. Like I said, my husband and I went to the Grand Tetons in Yellowstone National Park for our honeymoon. My ex-husband worked there for many summers as a kid, and I mean, he knew that park backwards and frontwards, and he never saw anything like that. Of course, it's hidden behind waterfalls and under the ground and all that stuff, and maybe that's true. I don't know. What does this tell the Upper Brotherhood members about who in the Brotherhood has authority and jurisdiction over the area? First, we see the Gate of Baal at the upper northwest area of the national park. You'll see that picture in a minute. It's on here. The gate tells us that Baal is one of the main deities worshipped at Yellowstone. We know biblically from history that Baal also demands child and blood sacrifice. It also tells us there are spiritual gate connections to Babylon and other locations where the gates of Baal are erected. There are three main brotherhood orders that have upper authority and jurisdiction in Yellowstone. First, the Order of Odin. Okay. This is symbolized in the Yellowstone sigil by the mountain peaks that represent the mountains of Ragnarok. Why can't it just represent the mountain peaks in Yellowstone? I don't know. Odin is in Norway and the Norwegian countries. It has nothing to do with Yellowstone. But okay. The mountains of Ragnarok. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that or not. Where the Brotherhood members of this order believe Odin reigns. This means that the Yellowstone area will be connected and working with the three military bases I've testified about that are called Ragnarok. So that includes the deep underground military base in the Aleutian Islands of Alaska, the deep underground military base off Greenland known as Antarctica up there, and the South Pole deep underground military base known as Antarctica or and or Antarctica down there. There are 2 more bases I know to be connected to this area. One is NORAD, the other is Nellis Air Force Base. Additionally, we see the spear of Odin signified in the shape of the sigil. See Exhibit CD. The same shape was used in the building and design of Wilsberg Castle, which was one of Hitler's main bases of operation. You can see it in the aerial geography view of the castle. See Exhibit E. So what does this tell us about Yellowstone? It tells us there is a Nazi main base of operation underground facility located underground that is connected to Wewelsburg Castle. As a child, I experienced these locations being used as main bases of operation and strategy by the Luciferian Brotherhood and Sovereign Military Order. Brotherhood of Odin symbols used by Nazis at Wilberg Castle. I didn't go to that link. We see this territory marked by the Brotherhood of Odin in the names of the waterfalls. I have outlined how I witnessed these areas being used by the Luciferian Brotherhood and Sovereign Military in 1981-87. I witnessed an underground tunnel network and transportation system, as well as different Nazi facilities under Yellowstone National Park. See the map of the falls. You know, something just popped into my head right there. I highly doubt that there are any underground facilities in Yellowstone National Park. I highly doubt that, because that place is filled with geysers, you know, like Old Faithful, all over the place. There's molten lava under that park. It could blow up at any minute. Why would they build an underground military base there? I've been there probably 4 times. I wouldn't want to be in an underground base there. They could be blown apart any second. That's just what popped in my head right then. Like I said, I've been there. I've been all over that park. You know, we've camped there. So, yeah, I don't believe there's any underground parks there. They might be around there somewhere, but I think that would be a stupid thing to do, actually. The main entrance to the secret city of Asgard being located near Asgard Falls. So there's a city behind the waterfall. I think somebody's been reading too much about Lord of the Rings or something. The sign of Asgard being the representation of the falls and of the Tower of Asgard in Tower Falls. Other entrances are located across the bridge, now called Chittenden Bridge. See Exhibit F at the Upper Falls, and a lower underwater entrance at Isolation Falls by the waterfall called the Midst of Trident Falls. There were 2 concerns about this area. First, Trident Falls is one of the locations where one of the underground decommissioned Poseidon missiles filled with biochemical warfare was seen. If it were to be set off, it would affect Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho areas through the waterways. We would enter underground caverns under the water at Isolation Falls. See Exhibit G. And I'll say again, the pictures look like they were taken from picture postcards. So anybody could have put this together and just put pictures on there and made up stories about it. See Exhibit G. There is a spiritual gate in the water there, and also has direct connection to Carpathos Island in Greece. Okay, all right, we'll go with it. And several other temples where priestesses worship in the system as outlined in the Greenbrier and Alton Towers affidavits. The Foxhole Falls is over the underground den I witnessed in the 1980s where the protectors in the system, who are wolves, would meet and train. Real wolves? I'm sorry. Wolves are a position that is considered an upper sovereignty military select order. They will be assigned to protect elite members in the area or provide peripheral protection for human hunting parties and rituals in the area. The midst of Trident Falls is one of the areas above ground where the wolves spearfish, hunt humans during hunts. Are these human wolves? Werewolves? That's what I'm not understanding here. The name of the falls signifies what is permitted in that area. The den is also the area where local sovereign military connected to the KKK will meet. All dragons, dragon is a regional leader name for the KKK, have dens. Okay. Apron Falls signifies an area where the Brotherhood and sovereign military can sow their seed. The apron in Masonry is seen as a holy cloth covering the groin area where they believe the seed of their godhood nature is kept. Fairy Falls, Colonnade Falls, and Mystic Falls were considered more spiritual areas. That is where they will be sent to have mystical experiences and for meditation. Mystical experiences will include sexual magic. They are considered safe havens in the park. If a hunted person ends up there during a hunt, it is considered a refuge. But sooner than later, they find they cannot survive in that area, especially with the cold nights, without exposing themselves to the very Brotherhood who are hunting them. They will be lured out so they can be killed. That is why Old Faithful Inn, 3200 Old Faithful Inn Road, Yellowstone National Park, Wyoming, is located in that area. Well, I've been in that Old Faithful Inn. Those who are considered retired and too old to hunt in woods will lounge and engage in preying on small children for sexual magic or whomever may happen by chance to wander in. Okay. The second Brotherhood order in charge at Yellowstone is signified by the white buffalo on the Yellowstone sigil. This represents the Order of the White Buffalo. Okay. See Exhibit F. www.gloklahoma.com Order of the Sacred White Buffalo. I believe this order is recent and was not present in the 80s in my experience. However, there are some connections I feel are important. This includes areas where I witnessed crimes being committed against children that now seem to be managed by the Order of the White Buffalo in the Yellowstone area. In my experience in the 80s, there were a couple locations used for underground markets and the rape, torture, and sexual exploitation of young children by older men and women in the system. Buffalo Ranch in the Lemur Valley, I remember this area being highly connected to the supply and chain. It was used in connection with, I'm not going to read this part out loud. White Buffalo Hotel located, I will circle it so you know what I'm talking about. White Buffalo Hotel located at 236 Dunraven Street, West Yellowstone, Montana. See Exhibit 1. This area was used by several elite in the area for sexual exploitation of children. Several individuals connected to the management of Yellowstone National Park were connected to these areas. I'd like to know how young she was when this happened, because there's a lot of big adult language here that I don't know how long she's claiming to be out of this cult or whatever it was, this order, this Mothers of Darkness thing. I don't know the ages. So that would make a big difference, because a young child would not remember all this stuff. The third Brotherhood order who has authority and jurisdiction in the Yellowstone area is the Ancient Order of Foresters and Tall Trees. Okay, signified by the tree in the Yellowstone sigil. Okay. This order can be seen more easily by their representation of members in graveyards. The gravestones will be shaped like tree trunks. They will be decorated with lilies, ivy, or vines. They could have forest equipment such as saws, hammers, and axes. Usually they have a circular sigil on them with the Order of Foresters and Tall Trees motto in Latin written on them. Okay. Crimes are committed in Brotherhood circles. In the system, those in regional authority appear to be above the law. It does not matter which country they are in, they have free access to go and be whatever they desire and to commit crimes and have them covered up in those areas. That is part of the Brotherhood Code. You are your brother's keeper, and if your brother commits a crime, it's your duty to cover your brother's sin to the fullest of your ability. Crimes in the Brotherhood and sovereign military are committed with the majority of those in your circle present. This is a safeguard for everyone in the circle. If one person decides to tell, the circle has a choice. Either they get the one who told under control, or they will all be discovered. This is why when I chose to start speaking out about the Luciferian Brotherhood and sovereign military, some individuals began contacting my family in the Brotherhood and making comments that I am unwell and that my family needs to get me help or get me under control. They do this because they do not want the truths about what they do in secret to be made known. Well, duh. Now this is hearsay that I heard, that I saw on Twitter. Just trying to remember it right. That someone went to, or that one of Jesse's sons died. I don't know if he was killed or committed suicide. I can't remember the nature of his death. But that she accused either her mother or grandmother, somebody in her family, of casting a spell on him. So that sounds a little suspicious when she talks about them contacting family members. I've also heard that someone spoke to Jesse's grandmother or mother, and that she's still alive. She wasn't a mother of darkness who got decapitated and buried because she was too old. That they know what Jesse's doing, but there's nothing they can do to stop her. Now, whether that's true or not, I can't prove that. So that's just hearsay, and I'm just going to put that in here. So if anybody knows anything about this, I'd appreciate knowing more details. I'd like to be able to corroborate and provide solid evidence. A lot of what I'm going by is, things that I've seen and heard, things that I just don't think are possible. I'm just telling her story here. It is common in the Brotherhood to have multiple circles, and the number is limitless and based only on whether a circle accepts you or not. Some circles and orders do have requirements and prerequisites for entry. Brotherhood circles are formed across nations. The Code of Silence is the first code one learns in the system, and the Code of Brotherhood the second. Children in training for hierarchy positions in the system are treated like adults and carry the responsibility of such. Well, it don't matter whether they're treated as adults. They can't carry the responsibilities of an adult. Not possible. There were adults in my circle groups. When they committed sins and crime, I was expected to remain silent about it and to allow or permit cover-up. Well, you can teach a child to do that. That's true. The Brotherhood connects in regional levels to law enforcement, sheriff's departments, local military, support services, fire departments, and people in powerful government positions. The Brotherhood establishes territory that has Brotherhood regional managers who are in local positions that enable them to have access to areas needed for training. Some of the individuals who had regional access in my training are named in my former affidavits. You must understand the Brotherhood are accountable only to the Brotherhood. It is my belief that regional management is established about every 10 years. That means every 10 years, about 8 children, age 4.5, from each region are selected to be trained in the Sovereign Military Order of Knights Templars. I believe these children are bred and have certain characteristics that the system is looking for to fill positions within the system. The Mothers of Darkness, oracles, and grand high priests and priestesses will be influenced in choosing these children. Once chosen, the children are twinned in pairs for training. The children who are twinned will be known as training partners and know that they are in training together. They are trained within their main circle groups. That means there are multiple adults involved in their training in the local area. What do teachers look for when twinning? The main teachers are looking for equilibrium between the children they pair. Equilibrium is vital within magic circles. Initial connections with these children will be made either at a local school with a Luciferian Brotherhood teacher and members of the circle who come into the class as volunteers, or within the community, which could be through field trips. The main teacher who is in the class with the children will already have a heads up on the children in the area that are being considered for sovereign military training. The children will be paired as follows. The children are paired by the type of elemental magic they are drawn to. One child will represent fire magic, the other water magic, or one child will represent earth magic and the other air magic. So one pair will always consist of fire and water and the other of earth and air. This has to do with direction and the magnetic aligning within ritual circles. One pair will represent north, south, the other west, east. I guess I'm questioning, why do we need to know all the ins and outs of magic and Satanism and witchcraft? Why do we need to know that? All the exact little tiny, teeny details. Why is Jessie teaching this? Because that's what she's doing. She's getting on show after show after show, and she's teaching you about magic, and she's teaching you about Kabbalah, and she's teaching you about witchcraft and sacrifice. One child will be considered masculine, the other feminine. This can deal with birth dates and times. One child will prefer good while the other prefers evil in making decisions and choices. One child will be compliant while the other rebels against the system. One child will be able to control the other through leverage. Out of the 8 children, 2 will be chosen to be leaders in the sovereign military training. My training partner, Douglas John Kilrush, Myseko, and I were chosen to be the leaders in our little circle groups. These little circle groups start with a total of 8 children and is quickly weeded down to 3 groups of 2 that will continue in intensive training under a Nazi defense magic specialist. This individual will be the children's direct contact to the U.S. military and the military bases. I believe this individual usually lives a cover as a grandparent to one of the 2 children. That grandparent will be called grandfather or grandmother. When the children are in public, they only use the English version to identify that individual's relation to them. However, if they are in training, the Nazi defense teacher is known by the Ukrainian variant of the word, which is didas or didas for grandfather, or babusya for grandmother. This is according to the Nazi Michael Karkoke set the training program up to run within the United States. In training, my training partner and I, called Nazi Michael Karkoke, did Mahal, which means grandfather Michael. After the children are connected to a Nazi defense teacher, they are connected to 2 local training centers to begin regional training. In my experience, the 2 locations were local Jesuit Catholic churches. Our intensive training occurred at Cathedral of St. Peter in Rockford, Illinois, Anthony's Catholic Church in Casper, Wyoming. I wish I had time to research every location and everything in here to check it out. But I still say one of the biggest red flags is the claim that there are underground military bases inside Yellowstone National Park. I even talked to my husband about this last night, and he said, there's no way. You know, that place is a hotbed for volcanic activity. You know, it might be in cities around there somewhere that don't have that, but inside Yellowstone National Park is, you know, just cauldrons of bubbling goo and steam, and, you know, it lets off that steam. You know, for years they've been watching Yellowstone because it could be the next biggest catastrophe on Earth if it all explodes. So I don't believe the claims of underground bases and stuff that's connected all over the world. It's just, you would have to go under the sea for some of it. It's just crazy. Both these facilities are similar in structure and layout. They both have buildings that are used as schools. They are in central areas in their communities. They have extensive underground areas and are connected to ritual walls underground that extend throughout their communities. These are also close in vicinity to areas the sovereign military used to commit crimes, both residential and non-residential. Why are 2 facilities that are similar in structure and layout chosen? I believe it is a safeguard in case one of the children begins to talk. Again, I'd like to know how old Jessie was in between 81 and 87. I'll have to see if I can find her birth date somewhere. As the children begin training, they are also initiated into their main circle group within the community. I believe this initiation begins in the middle of the night as Brotherhood and sovereign military members meet up in the yard of one of the 2 top children chosen and murder their family in the front yard of their community. The 2 children are forced to stand in a straight posture without touching each other. They are told that they must watch, and if they close their eyes or turn away, they will be killed. Both children watch as those in their circle group graphically rape, torture, and kill family members of the one child. I'll tell you what, if that's true, that's just beyond despicable. I have a tendency not to believe that they would do that out in somebody's front yard. I mean, it just gets to the point. It's just totally ridiculous. The child whose family dies is placed in the care of the Ukrainian defense teacher to begin intensive. That child's training is more intense since they do not have any family or cover life to go home to. It is my belief that the child living with the Ukrainian defense teacher is selected to be trained as a main regional leader over the protector departments or to head up a regional sovereign military circle where needed. What does intensive training look like? It is living hell mixed with art, music, dance, and defense magic. Children are in intensives are either sexually Abused are considered untouchable, either encouraged and forced to have blank or forced to watch others engage in such activities. Introduced to pornography and masturbation at the age of 5. Physically assaulted, beaten, whipped, hit, and tortured. There's a strong love-hate relationship that develops. Your abuser, who causes you pain and suffering, also becomes the one who is in control of your healing and comfort and training. Now that part is true in the process of mind control. Abused with food. Okay, I'm going to let you read this here because I just don't want it coming out of my mouth.
Then it's one foot, then the other as you step out on the road. Step out on the road. How much weight? How much?
I remember one time I saw a cat when we arrived at one of the houses we were training at. I thought it was so sweet and had knelt down to pet it. Later I was thrown into a basement and forced to watch as
walk me through this while. Don't leave me alone. Call all angels. Call all angels. We're trying, we're hoping, but we're not sure how. On every day you gaze upon the sunset with such love and intensity.
a child in training cannot risk breaking the silence because the lives of their family or training partner's family are on the line. They quickly learn that every decision made affects the other. The children in intensives are taught operations of supply and chain. This includes and how to transport system assets from one location to another. They are also taught how to protect themselves and cover up evidence of their crimes. A community is involved in these children's training and rearing in the Luciferian Brotherhood and Sovereign Military. Part 3, Ritual Murders, Hunting, and Training Grounds. I have brought out in the Greenbrier, Alton Towers, and Priestess affidavits how the Brotherhood system profits and that they work with governmental agencies, associations, foundations, and societies to receive governmental and state funding. They profit by purchasing and owning land that they can use to commit crimes on. An example of this is the Rotary Park in Casper, Wyoming, which was established at the base of the Casper Mountain. At the top of that mountain, you have a ritual ground known as Crimson Dawn. You also have a ritual ground down under the mountain. There are also several campgrounds in the area connected to the Brotherhood clubs and churches in the community. The land, buildings, or properties they purchase are established under certain titles that then distinguish properties. Such titles include parks, recreational areas, historical, museum, reserve. The primary purposes for this are monitoring and securing funding. Monitoring enables Brotherhood members to secure entrances and exits into wooded and underground areas or provide peripheral security. At Yellowstone and the Casper, Wyoming Rotary Park, some of the outdoor entrances and exits can be accessed through culverts, watersheds, cabins, or grounds buildings. This setup allows Brotherhood members to live in areas as rangers, ground crews, law enforcement, or security to monitor who is in the territory and to act as watchers for ritual events and human hunting parties. They work with DMV, Transportation, Parks and Rec, and other federally funded governmental departments or private-owned programs. Who really owns the land? It is owned by we the people under the guise of prevention, protection, and development. The system profits and pays those who work in the military for crimes they, in the brotherhood and sovereign military, for crimes they commit and the cover-up of those crimes on property that is supposed to belong and be governed by we the people. They create a reason to secure the area. Some create legends and tales. Well, that sounds very familiar. In case stories surface to aid in cover-up. Like the 7 witches story for the Casper Mountain. The legend has it that 7 witches found a portal and could open an area under the mountain. What is the system really covering up? They are covering up ritual and mass holding grounds under the mountain. This ritual ground is memorialized at St. Patrick's Catholic Church in Casper, Wyoming, where they have inscribed a memorial to the unborn. What does that mean? Why inscribe a memorial to all the unborn if they claim it is to aborted babies? Technically, those infants are born during the process of being aborted. So what does it really mean? I don't know. What does it mean? The imagery they use on the memorial to the unborn shows ritual grounds where infants are near the waterfall at the Rotary Park and Crimson Dawn. Extension or rare are terms also used to classify brotherhood, ritual areas, and secure funding. For instance, in the UK, property was secured by the Arachnid Society, claiming there was a rare type of arachnid. What was really being covered up was an unmarked deep underground military base on the land. The classification gave the Brotherhood complete control of the lands and the cavern access points into the underground in that area. Grounds used for ritual use. I've talked about the rituals that occur for hierarchy children in the system, starting at age 12. Okay, I'm going to circle some things because I just don't want to say it out loud. Okay, she says, I described such a ritual I witnessed occurring at the Biltmore, owned by the Vanderbilts. And we've seen a lot of that coming out of the Q group and all that. And I don't doubt that some of it happens. What I doubt is that Jessie saw any of it happen. I think she took that and made her own twist on it. That's my gut feeling after listening to hours of this, is that there's a lot of head knowledge, a lot of things that she's obviously either trained herself in by reading books on witchcraft and the Illuminati and all this stuff, plus all the twists and turns and myths and made-up sensationalist stories that we've heard all over the internet. Anybody, with any kind of intelligence, even a cunning intelligence, can make up stories which include themselves. Some people are really good at it, like 107 and Timothy Homestead and Jessie Czebotar. After that, they will be encouraged to engage in sexual immorality. In fact, the high priests like to tell the hierarchy boys that it is God's will for them to be fruitful and multiply. Okay, during the spring and fall equinox rituals. How does she remember all this stuff? I think she was 5 or 6 or 8 years old. I don't know how long it supposedly went on. And that's something I should know before I do this, is her age. But I'd say if she was just a young girl under 10 years old, or under, 8 or 7 years old, there's no way in this world she could remember all this stuff in such detail, where she knows all the ins and outs of witchcraft and Satanism. This has to be an interest, something that she has highly researched and looked into. No true Christian would do that. We don't need to know all the insides of it, because it can contaminate us.
Don't leave me alone. Calling all angels. Calling all angels. We're trying, but we're not sure. Calling all angels. Calling all angels.
See, I've heard about all this stuff. So I'm sure Jessie's heard about it too. The area of delivery just depends on how the regional area runs things. I saw different scenarios throughout my experience in the Luciferian Brotherhood for equinox deliveries. I witnessed ritual premature deliveries and killings in what is considered the most northern area in the Brotherhood, near the Madison, Wisconsin area. I witnessed these occur in woods located near the junior high camps connected to the Baraboo Circus area, the island by our family cabin, and underground at St. Peter's Church in Ashton, Wisconsin. In these places, the deliveries were aided by the Mothers of Darkness and high priestesses in the area. The rituals were performed by Clara Odelia Acker Church, the other Mothers of Darkness and high priestesses in the area.
Santa Maria, Santa Teresa, Santa Ana, Santa Susanna, Santa Cecilia, Santa Coppelia, Santa Domenica, Mary Angelica, Praetor Ashes.
In Chicago and West Virginia areas, I witnessed the equinox deliveries occur at the Chicago Breeder Program, Greenbrier Breeder Facility, and at Bush's Island nearby. The deliveries were facilitated by the Breeder Program doctors and nurses. These individuals were Nazis and connected to Tavistock. I don't doubt that some of this stuff literally happens. That's not what I'm questioning. I'm questioning that Jessie actually witnessed all this. In the Wyoming area, these births occurred at Crimson Dawn. Between the ambulances going by and my puppy snoring, I do have some background noise, so please forgive that. In the Wyoming area, these births occurred at Crimson Dawn, and the area above the waterfall is now managed by the Rotary Club. The birthing area rotates in Casper, and at times deliveries were done below ground under the mountain, or in the ritual area underground below the tree, where the memorial is at St. Patrick's Catholic Church. In this area, some of the sovereign military boys in training would be present at the birth of their firstborn child. I witnessed these boys being encouraged to kill the child. If they did, they would be elevated in status. I witnessed equinox premature births and ritual killings in the upper northwestern woods at Yellowstone National Park and in the Nazi facility underground. Lack of accountability gives way to unreported murders. With grounds protected, the Brotherhood operates in the area with no outside auditing or accountability outside of the Brotherhood system. They establish protocols that they say are for the public's protection and prevention. These same protocols also become their safety and keep others from outside the system from getting involved in their business. especially during night hours. Non-compliance to hours of operation listed on signs posted to the public becomes willing consent to possible dire consequences. How they see it is that the sign is a warning. You've been warned. If you're in their territory when you're not supposed to be, you're now given willing consent for whatever may happen to you while there. So many individuals go missing, but did they really go missing in the first place? Many deaths or kidnappings are covered up as missing persons. They're taken captive and brought into the underground cities and tortured until they die. There are those who wish they could die, but death eludes them. There are places underground that literally are living hell. As a child, I saw people in the system who messed up. They committed what the system deemed as sins, and that usually ended in their demise. I saw them brought in from areas outside Wyoming by wolves and dropped at dusk in the woods. My question is she talking about real wolves or initiates or something who are called wolves? And dropped in the dusk in the woods somewhere in the Yellowstone area. Then the hunting games would begin. This was a regular occurrence when I was there. One such individual was called Pipeline Pete. That was not his real name. Years later, after he declared missing, his remains were found in Sweetwater, Wyoming. The sheriff said his real name was Jack Clausen. There were lots of unknowns surrounding the circumstances of Jack's death. In 1982, I witnessed the sovereign military order of Knights Templars, including sheriff from Casper, Laramie, Sweetwater, and surrounding areas, hunt and kill Pipeline Pete. Okay, 1982, so 82, 92, 2002, 2022, so that would be 32 years ago. So how old is Jessie Czebotar? If she witnessed this in 1982, 32 years ago. And this is 2024. So if anybody knows, let me know. In 1982, I witnessed the sovereign military order of Knights Templars, including sheriffs from Casper, Laramie, Sweetwater, and surrounding areas, hunt and kill Pipeline Pete. The story was that he ran young teen girls through the pipeline, the trafficking trails from outside areas to Casper. He fell in love with Goods, one of the girls. The system found out. The sovereign military took the matter into their own hands and gathered members together. That night they collected Pipeline Pete and had a hearing. Sampled goods was the sentence the sovereign military declared over him, and he was taken out and hunted by the sovereign military from multiple jurisdictions. Pipeline Pete's was not the only death I witnessed occurring in the Wyoming area. The first death I witnessed in Yellowstone was on the old wood bridge that crossed a smaller portion of the canyon. Yellowstone used to allow school tours across the bridge. It was a week after I had been forced to cross the old wood slat bridge at Neuschwanstein, where I witnessed a murder. I was terrified my proctor would throw me off like the child in Germany. My proctor threatened that I'd regret not crossing the bridge at Yellowstone. I refused to step a foot on it. A week later, a child died on a school trip by falling off that bridge. After that, Yellowstone took the wood-slotted bridge down. I believe that was also in the spring of 1982. Another attack involved a wolf in the sovereign military who mutilated a man to scare him into compliance. The man was taken to a local hospital, and later it was said that he had been mauled by a bear. So that must be a real wolf that she's talking about. The missing and lost are part of the system's supply chain. They create ways to receive government and project funding for their criminal activity. The light side of the system has always been influential in the covering up of crimes. They make their efforts look good with a form of godliness and for the betterment for humanity and animals. What are they protecting? Wildlife, prevention, and protection becomes a cover for their crimes committed against children and humanity. Movement of supply and chain. There are two types of supply and chain in the Yellowstone area. First, you have those who are considered lost or missing. Second, you have mass amounts of individuals who are brought in on trains and semi-trucks by law enforcement or sovereign military. As a child, I witnessed underground shipping coming in from the Cheyenne Mountain area, NORAD, the Colorado area, the Dakotas, and Montana. Additional concerns for investigation in the area. The Mammoth Hot Springs Post Office in Yellowstone is distinguished with 3 archways. This indicates the post office sits on what is considered a northern wall underground. Ritual altars are built on the western walls. See Exhibit K. Within the Brotherhood, there are some things I'd like to establish on record. First, priestesses are taught to do embalming. The group that do are trained under the priestesses of Delphi and the daughters of the Nile. They are taught in ancient Egyptian art forms of death, dying, and afterlife techniques. They are classified under the Brotherhood Order of the Phoenix and under the Brotherhood Order called the Shriners. Also, under the Shriners, you have an order called the Order of Quetzalcoatl, or Q. They also call their members Cotes. What is important to know is that they themselves report that originally this order was used to transport funds for the Shriners hospitals through Mexico to the United States. I believe this needs to be investigated further to connections in light of all I've revealed about the Luciferian Brotherhood and sovereign military and their crimes against children and humanity. Exhibits: Exhibit A, Yellowstone National Park sigil. Exhibit B, Gate of Baal. Exhibit C and D, Brotherhood of Odin symbols. Exhibit E, geographical view of Wewelsburg spear structure. Map of waterfalls in Yellowstone. Exhibit F, picture of Chittim Bridge. Exhibit G, picture of Isolation Falls. Order of the White Buffalo Grand Lodge. Grand Lodge of Oklahoma, AF and AM, all rights reserved.
'Cause we're not sure how. Santa Maria, Santa Teresa, Santa Anna, Santa Susanna, Santa Cecilia, Santa Capilia, Santa Domenica, Mary Angelica, Frater Ashes, Frater Pietro, Julianus, Petronella, Santa Santos, Miroslav, Vladimir, and all the rest. Oh, a man is placed upon the steps and a baby cries. High above you can hear the church bells start to ring. And as the heaviness, oh, the heaviness, the body settles in, somewhere you can hear a mother sing. Then it's one foot, then the other, as you step out on the road. Step out on the road. How much weight? How much? Then it's how long and how far and how many times. Oh, before it's too late. Call all angels, call all angels. Walk me through this one, don't leave me alone. Call all angels, call all angels. We're trying, we're hoping, but we're not sure how. On every day you gaze upon the sunset with such love and intensity. It's almost as if you could only crack the code, then you'd finally understand what this all means. But if you could, do you think you would trade in all the pain and suffering? But then you'd miss the beauty of the light upon this earth, and the sweetness of the leaving. Calling all angels, calling all angels, walk me through this one, don't leave me alone. Calling all angels, calling all angels, we're trying, but we're not sure.
After all you've seen, after all the evidence, why can't you believe?
I'm afraid. I'm afraid to believe.